We're pawnbrokers that happen to be on TV. The uniqueness of our situation is the American Jewelry and Loan business. We're a pawn shop. We deal with 1,000 people that come in to borrow money every day, and that's what drew attention to our store.
For years, millions of viewers believed they knew exactly who Les Gold was, the tough, sharp-talking pawn shop owner who could spot a bad deal in seconds. But when the cameras stopped rolling, everything changed. Behind the scenes, the real story was far more dramatic than television revealed. Now, at 76, Les Gold is finally revealing what happened after hardcore pawn. So, how much of his empire remains today? And what has he kept hidden from fans all these years? How Les Gold built his million-dollar empire. Les Gold never set out to become a television personality. An entire pawnbroking career came first, inherited directly from a family that had already been in the business for 2 generations before he ever opened his own doors.
Well, the magic of the show is the family, the dynamics of the family, and the stories that 1,000 people a day have.
American Jewelry and Loan started small in 1978. A single Detroit storefront built on nothing more than trust, sharp instincts, and a willingness to work with customers other lenders had already turned away. Unlike traditional banks, a pawn shop offered quick loans backed by collateral instead of credit scores, allowing Gold to build a loyal customer base among people who often had nowhere else to go. Real growth came slowly, and then all at once. That single small shop eventually expanded into a genuine 50,000 square foot operation, one of the largest pawn shops anywhere in the country. Every day, thousands of items passed through the business, from jewelry and electronics to rare collectibles and luxury watches, making American Jewelry and Loan far more than an ordinary neighborhood pawn shop. It also became important enough to the local economy that Gold himself was regularly asked to comment on national television about what pawn traffic revealed about the wider economy.
And retail is for suckers, so if you really want a great deal, come to the pawn shop. And as a matter of fact, for us, we're expanding, so we just opened up another store.
During difficult financial periods, more customers came through the doors looking for emergency cash, making the business an unexpected indicator of Detroit's economic health. When Hardcore Pawn premiered in 2010, cameras finally caught what had already been true for decades. A shop that functioned as a genuine barometer for an entire city's financial health, one loan and one shouting match at a time. The series introduced millions of viewers to the constant negotiations, unusual customers, and family dynamics that had long defined the business. Les Gold's calm negotiating style, combined with the personalities of his children Seth and Ashley, quickly turned the program into one of cable television's most recognizable reality shows. That same television exposure, however, did something no ordinary pawn shop could have anticipated. It turned a private family business into a very public brand, handing Les Gold a level of fame that would eventually tempt him into decisions far riskier than anything happening across his own counter. 9 full seasons of Hardcore Pawn eventually aired between 2010 and 2015, turning the shop's famous 8-mile road location into something close to a tourist attraction in its own right. Fans regularly traveled to Detroit, hoping to catch a glimpse of Les, Seth, or Ashley negotiating deals in person, while American Jewelry and Loan gained a level of brand recognition that very few pawn shops anywhere in the world have ever achieved. Gold himself also gained a media platform that most small business owners never come close to receiving, opening doors far beyond the pawn industry. Fame and a growing bank account gave Gold access to opportunities an ordinary pawnbroker would never have seen. And by 2017, he had started pouring serious money into real estate across Detroit, buying up aging, empty buildings in some of the city's roughest and most overlooked neighborhoods. The vision itself made real sense on paper. Restore neglected buildings with shops on the ground floor and affordable apartments above them, helping struggling communities while creating steady rental income for decades. Real estate experts warned the plan carried serious risks. Yet Gold, trusting decades of hard-earned business instinct, pushed forward anyway. What followed exposed exactly how expensive neglected buildings can become once inspectors start looking beneath the surface. Structural damage, dangerous asbestos, failing plumbing, and decades-old electrical wiring all demanded complete replacement. An initial $5 million repair estimate eventually ballooned past $15 million before the projects were anywhere near finished. Money disappeared quickly, contractors went unpaid, work stalled, and several buildings sat half-finished, exposed to weather and vandalism, a very public symbol of a gamble that had gone seriously wrong. The failed Las Vegas expansion. Even while those Detroit properties were quietly falling apart, Gold was already chasing an entirely different, equally ambitious idea. Riding high on hardcore pawn's massive popularity by 2014, he decided to open a flashy new pawn shop directly on the Las Vegas Strip, a location built specifically to attract tourists eager to see the same energy they had already watched play out on television. More than $4 million went into securing a prime location and building a 15,000-square-foot store designed to rival the famous Pawn Stars shop already thriving nearby. The opening in 2016 came with real fanfare, featuring celebrities, a grand launch party, and heavy advertising across local television and newspapers. Everything was built around the idea that tourists would flock to the store, hoping to find great bargains while experiencing a taste of television fame. But despite the excitement and high expectations, reality turned out very differently. The location sat just far enough off the main strip that foot traffic never materialized the way Gold had hoped, while monthly rent alone reportedly ran close to $75,000. A brutal number for a store already competing against well-established Las Vegas pawn rivals. After roughly a year and a half of losses reportedly running near $200,000 a month, the Las Vegas store finally closed for good in 2018. An expensive, very public failure that dented both Gold's finances and his reputation as an infallible businessman all at once. Even as those business wounds were still fresh, an entirely different kind of crisis had already been quietly building inside Gold's own family. Hardcore Pawn had always leaned on the tension between Les and his two adult children, Ashley and Seth, each one determined to prove their own value inside the business. And while the show clearly exaggerated some of that drama for entertainment, real, unresolved frustration sat underneath every single one of those filmed arguments. Seth had worked alongside his father since he was a teenager, and over time, he reportedly grew increasingly frustrated by what he saw as outdated methods and a business slow to modernize. Ashley, meanwhile, felt her own contributions in marketing and customer relations were never matched with real decision-making power inside the company. Both children reportedly pushed for a larger ownership stake to match their growing responsibilities, and both were reportedly turned down repeatedly. By late 2018, the growing tension finally reached a breaking point. Seth abruptly left American Jewelry and Loan to open a competing pawn shop just a few miles away. Reports claimed he took several trusted employees and a number of loyal customers with him, creating even more strain within the family business. Around 6 months later, Ashley also chose to leave, launching her own jewelry business focused on custom-designed pieces instead of the traditional pawn lending model. What followed, according to accounts from that period, included costly legal disputes over trademarks and business practices, reportedly running past $2 million in legal fees alone. A bitter family rift that cost Gold both money and the two children he had once hoped would eventually run the business after him. What made this particular rift sting far more than an ordinary business disagreement was the fact that the entire fallout had already played out publicly for years, on camera, in front of millions of viewers who had watched Ashley and Seth grow from teenagers into working adults inside that exact same store. Longtime customers reportedly began quietly picking sides once the split became permanent. Some following Seth to his new shop out of loyalty, others staying with Les out of habit, splitting a customer base that had once felt like a single, unified community built around one family name. When everything collapsed, just as Gold's business was still absorbing the financial damage from real estate losses, a failed expansion, and an expensive family split, an entirely unrelated crisis arrived from far outside anyone's control. When the pandemic forced Michigan businesses to shut their doors in early 2020, American Jewelry and Loan lost nearly 3 straight months of the in-person foot traffic its entire lending model depended on completely. Unlike retailers who could simply shift sales online, pawnbroking relies almost entirely on physically inspecting items and negotiating face-to-face, something no website could properly replace. An online appraisal option reportedly failed to earn customer trust, while government stimulus payments meant fewer people even needed to pawn belongings in the first place. A strange twist, where a historic financial crisis actually reduced demand for a business built specifically around financial emergencies. When stores reopened that summer, costs had climbed due to new safety requirements, yet reportedly only around 40% of previous customers returned. Rising gold prices, meanwhile, pushed many customers to redeem items previously pawned, forcing large cash payouts at the worst possible moment. By the end of 2020, 2 of Gold's 3 remaining stores had reportedly closed permanently, and well over half of his staff had been let go, leaving one surviving location running on reduced hours and a skeleton crew. Even as Gold's business struggled to survive the pandemic, an entirely separate and far more personal crisis was quietly building underneath his composed television persona. Diabetes had been part of his life for decades, generally managed well through medication and discipline, yet the combined stress of collapsing real estate projects, a fractured family, and a business hemorrhaging money reportedly began taking a serious physical toll. In December of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic's worst stretch, Gold reportedly suffered a serious heart attack, requiring emergency surgery to address 4 blocked arteries. The financial timing could hardly have been worse. An earlier decision to choose a lower premium health plan reportedly left him personally responsible for medical bills said to exceed $300,000, arriving at the exact moment his income had already collapsed. Recovery reportedly kept him away from daily operations for nearly 5 months, a stretch during which less experienced staff struggled to maintain the pricing instincts and personal relationships loyal customers had built specifically around Gold himself. By the time he returned in the middle of 2021, his health had improved but remained fragile enough to limit his hours significantly, right at the exact moment his business most needed his full attention and expertise back on the floor. The controversies that put Les Gold's reputation at risk. Gold's public image had always functioned as a genuine business asset, a carefully built reputation for being tough but fair that kept loyal customers coming back long after the television cameras had already moved on. That same reputation reportedly came under serious pressure when allegations began circulating publicly, claims Gold's representatives firmly and repeatedly denied through formal statements. According to accounts from that period, Gold initially chose to stay quiet, apparently believing his long-standing reputation would simply outlast the controversy on its own. Once local news outlets began looking into the claims, his legal team eventually issued a strong public denial, though the delayed response reportedly struck some observers as defensive rather than reassuring. No formal charges or lawsuits are reported to have ever followed the allegations themselves. Yet the controversy reportedly still cost the store a significant portion of its customer base in the months that followed. A reminder of how quickly decades of built-up trust can wobble once a business becomes this closely tied to one single, very public personality. Running a cash-heavy pawn business with constantly shifting inventory reportedly made accurate tax reporting genuinely difficult for years, a complexity Gold had long managed through a small accounting firm that had worked with him since long before television fame ever arrived. In September of 2021, according to this same account, Gold reportedly received formal notice of a full audit covering 6 years of both personal and business tax filings. What reportedly began as a routine review into real estate losses and inventory valuation eventually uncovered a pattern of inconsistent reporting, with investigators reportedly finding that his longtime accountant had used aggressive tax strategies during the business's most financially difficult stretches. Gold has maintained that he simply signed documents his accountants prepared for him, though tax authorities reportedly still held him personally responsible for the shortfall. By early 2022, the reported total owed, including penalties and interest, had climbed to roughly $2.8 million. A debt reportedly far beyond what the business could comfortably absorb at that particular moment. That figure alone reportedly forced serious conversations about which remaining assets could realistically cover the growing financial gap. According to the same account, family members and advisors began reviewing what could be sold if necessary. Those discussions reportedly even touched on personal belongings that Les Gold had spent an entire lifetime collecting through decades in the pawn business. At the time, few realized those difficult conversations would soon be overshadowed by an even larger crisis that arrived only months later and changed everything. Les Gold's devastating loss. A pawnshop's entire value ultimately rests on its physical inventory, and over decades, Gold had reportedly built an unusually valuable collection at his flagship Detroit store. Rare jewelry, high-end watches, instruments, and collectibles chosen using a genuinely sharp eye for value. In January of 2022, that same inventory reportedly became the target of a serious break-in over a holiday weekend, described in later accounts as professional and deliberate, bypassing older security systems and heading straight for the most valuable, easiest-to-move items in the building. When staff returned, the reported loss came to more than $3.2 million in stolen merchandise. A later review reportedly found real gaps in the store's aging security setup, along with a decision made the previous year to reduce insurance coverage as a cost-saving measure, a choice that reportedly left the policy covering only around 40% of the total loss. The eventual insurance payout, reported at roughly $1.3 million, left a significant gap that reportedly had to be covered by purchasing new inventory at full wholesale cost, straining an already fragile cash position even further. Every version of this story, including the one most widely circulated online, tends to end right around here, framed as a single uninterrupted collapse. There is, however, a genuinely separate, far more recent and far better documented development connected to this same family that rarely makes it into these retellings at all. In early 2026, federal prosecutors filed wire fraud charges against a man named John Broad, the husband of Ashley Gold Broad, the very same Ashley who once co-starred on Hardcore Pawn and who now runs her own online jewelry business. According to a federal affidavit, Broad allegedly directed millions of dollars in company funds from an unrelated business into accounts connected to consulting firms and to Ashley's own jewelry website, despite no legitimate business relationship existing to justify those payments. Ashley herself has not been named as part of the criminal complaint. That case matters here for a very specific reason. It shows the financial pressure surrounding this particular family never actually stopped once the original pawnshop drama faded from headlines. It simply moved into a new generation and a new business entirely. A real, federally documented development that adds a genuinely new layer onto a story most retellings treat as already finished. The truth behind the collapse. But the reality is far more complicated than many retellings focused entirely on collapse would have you believe. Despite the real estate losses, the failed Las Vegas expansion, the bitter family split, the pandemic, The serious health crisis, the reputational damage, the tax dispute, and the major theft, American Jewelry and Loan never actually disappeared. Current business records place the store's annual revenue at roughly $11 million as of 2026, with Seth Gold continuing to serve as vice president of the company his father built. Les Gold himself, now in his mid-70s, reportedly still shows up at the flagship Detroit store, meeting fans and offering his opinion on the health of the wider economy through the exact same lens he always has, watching who walks through his own front door. The full truth of Les Gold's story turns out to be neither a simple, uninterrupted success story nor the total, final collapse some retellings suggest. It sits somewhere honest in between, a business that absorbed an extraordinary run of blows across less than a decade, lost pieces of itself along the way, and still, somehow, kept its doors open. That distinction matters far beyond one single pawn shop in Detroit. Stories built entirely around collapse tend to travel further online than stories built around quiet, unglamorous survival. Yet survival is exactly what the actual public record shows here. A business can absorb a failed expansion, a family split, a pandemic, a health scare, a tax dispute, and a major theft, all inside the same handful of years, and still be standing afterward, bruised, smaller in places, but standing nonetheless. For a man who built his entire public identity around reading exactly what an item, and by extension an entire economy, was really worth underneath the surface, there is a certain fitting irony in his own story needing that same kind of honest, unglamorous appraisal. Which of these setbacks do you think hit Les Gold's empire the hardest? The real estate gamble, the family split, or the sheer bad timing of the pandemic arriving on top of everything else? Share which one surprised you the most in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe for more real stories behind the biggest names in reality television.